Hi friends, it's Kirsten. Hi friends, I'm so excited to finally get this video recorded and up and going because I've really been sitting back thinking and praying about how I wanted to share this. So I wanted to start sharing my Bible studies here on YouTube in longer form video. However, I've already shared 9 chapters on my Instagram stories. So I was thinking about if I was going to go back and just retouch on all of them, re-go through them, but then how I would post them would kind of get me like backed up to where I am now and going forward. So for the time being, what we're going to do is on my Instagram page, they have those little bubbles on my account, right? And they have your highlights. So everything from John chapter 1 to chapter 9 is saved in those highlights. I go through it thoroughly. I have some for people who would rather learn visually rather than audibly. So I have it written out in some. I have videos for some. So everything is there for chapters 1 through 9. So I started chapter 10 on Saturday and today is Tuesday. So the way my Bible has it split up like helps beautifully in how we go through Bible studies each day, so that we're not tackling a whole chapter, we're not getting lost in all the words, lost in what's going on. It is split up beautifully for just a little snippet each day, kind of playing off of each other, so you're able to stay focused, you're able to understand thoroughly. And I'll say this once and y'all probably get tired of hearing me say this over and over again, but enduring word, I have it linked in my bio, I'll have it on the screen. It is the best resource I have found by far that helps me go in detail, in depth, and get some context around what I'm reading. So how I do my studies and how I'll explain it to you guys. Now, y'all will probably figure out your own way of writing things down, how you want to memorize things, how you want to learn things. Everyone is different. You will have your own way. That is completely fine. You don't have to do it how I do it. I just like to know everything. So I started with this journal when we first started John, and I use these little sticky note tabs to show like what passage and what verses we're doing, and I go through alongside. So let me rephrase this. My setup for Bible study each morning is my Bible, my notebook, and my iPad. My iPad has Enduring Word on it all the time. I have the Bible open so I can follow along. I mark inside my Bible, and then in my notebook I will make notes based off Enduring Word. I will highlight key points. I'll highlight which verse is saying what. And what Enduring Word does is it tells you maybe where something is happening, or if it says Jesus left this part and he's in this town now, then Enduring Word will tell you this town back in that time is present day this town, and it's east of this river, and it gives you more context so that when you're reading the Bible and you're following along, it's not just a Bible story. You actually have an idea of, okay, well, they were here and they traveled here, they saw this person, they did this. It just helps everything to make more sense, right? So what I have decided to do moving forward with the Bible study portion of this page is John chapter 1 through 9 will all be on my Instagram. It is all saved in the highlight on my profile. My name is going to be linked obviously below in the caption, but it's also the Kirsten K. I'm that name across every single platform. But if you go to my profile, you will see the highlights, and you'll see Bible study 1, Bible study 2, and Bible study 3, because your girl filled them up, okay? So to catch up, you'll want to go there and kind of go through them all at your own pace. That's why they're saved. But if you are here from Instagram and you're already caught up and you're ready to keep going, then stay tuned, because we're going to dive into chapter 10 right now. So if you're here from Instagram, you guys already have an idea of where we left off at the ending of chapter 9. But for those of you that are just jumping in or maybe catching up from Instagram, we're starting chapter 10. So for a little backstory from chapter 9, okay? So Jesus has healed this man who was blind from birth, which is a huge deal. This man didn't have sight before. It wasn't like he had an accident and Jesus just kind of restored his sight. This man was born blind, and Jesus took dirt and made mud with his spit, wiped it on his eyes, and told him to go wash it off. And when he did, he acted in obedience to what Jesus said. He had faith and he could see, right? So when this happened, Y'all know that the Pharisees and Jesus were not like this, they were like this, okay? Jesus loved them, obviously, because he's Jesus. He loves everyone. The Pharisees, on the other hand, thought he was blasphemous, they hated him, they despised him, they quite literally wanted him dead. Multiple times in the book of John, we have already touched on that they wanted him dead. They've made that obvious. They've said that many times. They did not like Jesus. And a main reason they didn't like him is because they watched him do all of these miracles and they said that he was doing witchcraft, he was demon possessed, he was crazy, and they just had beef. I won't say they didn't like each other. Jesus loved them, but they did not like him. They hated him. They wanted him dead. In the end of chapter 9, it leaves us off with the Pharisees were listening to when Jesus was talking to the man that he healed from being blind, right? Because the man stood up for Jesus and said, I don't know anything about Jesus. I just know that he healed me. He changed my life, and that's that. And when he did that, the Pharisees were like, fine, you're cut off. You're cast out. You cannot worship in the temple. You're not welcome in the synagogue. We don't want you around. You're excommunicated and you're done. Okay. And so Jesus was talking to him and like he was giving him that comfort because he understood what he did to have Jesus's back and what he sacrificed worshiping in the synagogue to declare that Jesus was who he said he was because he healed him. I mean, think about it. If you had something that you had been struggling with and something that was, hindering you in your life, such as being blind or something like that, right? And then all of a sudden this person heals you, okay? Heals you completely. You can see, you can hear, whatever you had that was hindering you, right? And all of a sudden you were healed. And people come up to you and they say, you know about this person did this and they did this and they sinned and they said this. If it were me, I would say, I don't really care what this person did. All I know is they healed me. I can see, hear, whatever, and that's all I know. So, like, I'm gonna thank him. Whatever beef y'all got is between y'all. Like, I'm chilling. I'm happy. That's how I feel like the man was thinking. He was like, I don't know what y'all's beef is, but, like, I'm good. He healed me. I can see. So Jesus understood that by him saying like, you know, he did what he did. I'm healed, whatever. And having the sacrifice of not being able to worship in the temple anymore, Jesus comforted him and he showed him love and he embraced him. The Pharisees heard Jesus talking to this man and they didn't like what they heard. So we're going into chapter 10 and I'm super excited. As y'all know, I get super excited when I see a lot of red in my Bible. So I have a red letter print, and that just means that everything anyone is saying is in black, but when Jesus is speaking, his words are in red. So it's really cool to be able to differentiate and see exactly what he's saying, what someone else is saying. So when they're having a conversation with it being color coded like that, it's fascinating to see like, okay, they're going back and forth. Oh, Jesus said this. It's really cool. So all this is in red, so I got really excited when I read this. So Jesus always spoke and he taught in parables and in stories. And one thing I've learned is that Jesus loved metaphors and analogies. So a little backstory on me, if you guys don't know me. I was raised going to church all the time, multiple days a week, every revival. I went to the Christian school that was attached to my church, and we had a Bible class in school. So I've talked about this a lot. I have seen my Bible as a textbook for many, many years. I've known the stories. I've seen the cartoons, the Veggie Tales. Like, you know, I've heard all the things. I've had to memorize verses before and whatever, but I got so used to it that I think I took it for granted and I didn't really pay attention at what I was learning and what I was reading. So now that I'm actually understanding things, I've caught on a lot more and I'm like, Jesus really had a sense of humor. Like Jesus, when he spoke, like you didn't take him at a literal sense. You had to hear the story he was telling and then you could get something from it. So chapter 10, we start with him talking about sheep and shepherds and tending to your flock. Now, he was using this as a metaphor, as a way to get the Pharisees. The Pharisees are otherwise known as religious leaders in the Bible as well. So if you see Pharisees, the Jews, religious leaders, you're talking about the Pharisees, the rabbis, these leaders, okay? These ones that hated Jesus. So he was trying to make it or say it in a way that they would understand what he was saying, because sometimes when he spoke to them, it just went right over their head. They weren't grasping it. And then other times they would understand what he was saying, and they would call him out for blasphemy, and they'd be like, we know what you're saying, you can't say that, whatever. So he was like, okay, let me say this little story and y'all can understand and figure out what I'm trying to say. So I'm not going to read all to you, but just keep in mind, I do have the KJV. It is a little bit harder to understand. It's just what I've grown up on, so it's just my preference. Enduring Word is the NIV, so it's a lot easier to understand. But as I read, I will go back and explain, because I know the KJV can be a little confusing. Trust me, I understand. Okay, so he starts out in verse 1 by saying, Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. Verse 2, but he that entereth in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. So he's saying, if you enter by the door, by the gate of the pasture to the sheep, okay? I'm going to explain this. You enter through the door. You're the shepherd to those sheep, because you can get in through the door, right? If you have to climb around the gate, if you have to sneak in some other way, you're a thief and a robber. Keep this in mind. Verse 3. To him the porter openeth. Now, pause right here. A porter, which thankfully to Enduring Word, I understood, because I was like, what the heck is a porter? A porter is another word for a doorkeeper. So the doorkeeper's job is an additional person that sits by the gate, and he knows which shepherd is for which flock of sheep. And if he's guarding or he's at the gate of a certain flock and a shepherd wants to come in, he'll know if that's their flock or not. And if they're not, he won't let them in. So to him the porter openeth, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calleth his own sheep by name, and leadeth them out. So that's a representation of when the shepherd goes to his sheep, he knows them by name, and when he calls them, he can lead them out. Same as Jesus knows us by our name. He knows I love that saying. He knows our sin, but he calls us by our name, and we hear our name, and he leads us. Verse 4, and when he putteth forth his own sheep, he goeth before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. Verse 5, and a stranger will they not follow, but will flee from him, for they know not the voice of strangers. So he's saying that in comparison to the sheep, if a shepherd goes to a flock of sheep, he can speak to them and they'll know his voice if that's their normal, if that's their shepherd. But if a false shepherd, if you will, goes to that same flock of sheep and tries to talk to them and lead them out, they won't recognize his voice, they won't follow him. Keep that in mind. So verse 6 kind of wraps up this first part. It says, this parable spake Jesus unto them, and they understood not what things they were which he spake unto them. So obviously we're in the book of John, so John is writing this, John is speaking here, and he's saying that Jesus just said this little parable to these Jewish leaders, and they're not understanding what he's talking about, because in the past we have discovered that the religious leaders are taking Jesus for his word. They are taking him in a very literal sense. So when Jesus is trying to give them a story, a metaphor to try to help them understand, they're not getting it because they're being literal. They're like, okay, we're talking about sheep and shepherds. Like, what does that have to do with what just happened and why we're questioning you in our conversation? Like, this is not relevant, pretty much. So then Jesus goes down in verse 7 and he says, Verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. And he goes down until verse 18, still speaking about this. And he's relating himself to the shepherd. So Jesus is calling himself the true shepherd. And he's telling the religious leaders that they are the false shepherds. That they are, where is the word? In verse 12, they're the hireling, which means the false shepherd. So they're the ones that are adjacent to being the robbers and the thieves that are trying to lead the flock astray. And Jesus is saying, no, I'm the door. The doorkeeper, the porter, if you will. We're going back to that. They are my sheep. They know my voice. And when they hear a stranger's voice, they won't astray. They won't leave me. They won't go to them because they don't know their voice. However, they know my voice because I am their true and good shepherd. And so they stay with me, they follow me, they trust my lead. So that's pretty cool. So then obviously he goes down. So then Jesus is still talking. So verse 14, he says, I am the good shepherd and know my sheep and have known of mine. As the Father knoweth me, even so I the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. The other sheep I have, which are not of this fold, them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold and one shepherd. Therefore doth my Father love me, because I lay down my life that I might take it again. No man taketh it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it again. This commandment have I received of my Father. So what I just read there is verses 14 through 18. It's the ending of him speaking to these Pharisees right now. And he's saying, I'm the good shepherd. I'm the true shepherd. And my sheep, us, we know his voice. And he knows us by name, and we know him by his voice. He compares that to how him and the Father know each other, because going back, this all started because Jesus said, or I guess he made the claim, he said that him and God the Father were in perfect unity. That they were one in the same, okay? And obviously the Pharisees were like, that's blasphemous. But that's where this is coming from. So then he relates it back to that. So he's saying, as he knows his sheep and the sheep know him, so us are the sheep, we are the sheep, he knows the Father and the Father knows him. So he's relating that back to that. But verse 16 is really interesting, and I thought that was pretty cool on Enduring Word, how they broke it down too. Says, and other sheep I have, which are not of this fold. So the fold is another word for like the flock. So this group of sheep. So we all know that the Jews, the Jewish people, are God's chosen people. And he's saying the other sheep I have. So not the Jews, because the Jews are in this flock. They're in this fold. So in the Gentiles, everyone else, okay, he must also bring. And they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold and one shepherd. So the thing about the Jews during this time is that they all believed that, of course, they're the chosen people, but that they were going to be the only ones to be saved by the Messiah. They were the only ones who God loved, the only ones who God saved, the only ones who would go to heaven. They were the only people. That's what they believed. And so now Jesus is kind of saying, yes, I love you. You are my people. However, everyone else is going to come together with you, and we're all going to be one fold, one flock of sheep, with one shepherd being Jesus. Then verse 17 and 18, go back to verse 15 when he says he lays down his life for the sheep. Obviously, this is before his arrest and crucifixion, so I'm sure they're like, you talking about you lay your life down for the sheep, like you are alive, you're here. And verse 17, therefore doth my Father love me, because I lay down my life that I might take it again. Verse 18 is powerful. No man taketh it from me, but I lay it down of myself. And I have the power to lay it down, and I have power to take it again. So now he's making another claim. So every time Jesus speaks, obviously the Pharisees are going to tear it apart. They're going to say, you said this, that. So Jesus is like, okay, I'm going to give you something to talk about. He's already said so much that they can kind of rebuttal and try to hate on and pick apart. But verse 18, he's saying that no one can take his life from him. He is going to willingly, voluntarily lay his own life down. No one can take it from him. And then he has the power to take it again, meaning he has the power to resurrect himself from the dead, which he does in a few chapters we'll see. So verses 19 through 21 is the end of like this parable passage cut off in my Bible. And it says, there was a division therefore again among the Jews for these sayings. And many of them said, he hath a devil and is mad. Why hear ye him? Others said, these are not the words of him that hath the devil. Can a devil open the eyes of the blind? So one thing we continue to see is the dividing line that Jesus becomes, but like in the people, okay? And it's either you're believing in Jesus or you reject Jesus. You love Jesus, you hate Jesus. You follow him, you want to kill him pretty much. And so verse 19 says there was division again because we've already seen this happen before. And half of the people said he has a demon, he's possessed, he's literally crazy, he has no idea what he's talking about, like he's insane. Where the other half of them were like, but someone who's possessed doesn't talk like this. Someone who has a demon can't open the eyes of the blind. They can't perform these miracles. So there was a division between them, because half of them were like, he's crazy. The other half is like, but is he really? They couldn't come together. So Jesus has been known to be the dividing line between humanity. So I also just want to say really quick that going forward, these videos for Bible study will not be this long. It is only because I did quite the lengthy intro, and then we're also going through 2 days worth of Bible study. So now we're getting into where I did Bible study this morning. So verses 22 through 42. And before all of these little like cut up sections, there's a title. So that one that we just went over is called The Good Shepherd. Obviously talking about shepherds and sheep. And this one is called Jesus Charged with Blasphemy. And when I saw that, I said, is it happening? Because I just told you guys that I grew up in church, I grew up in Christian school, you know, I don't know everything. I'm not gonna claim to be perfect, y'all. I don't know everything. But I know a lot of what's in the Bible. But when I started this study, I really wanted to be intentional in learning and understanding. So what I've kind of done, it's a little hard, but what I've kind of done is try to turn off and like tune out everything I already know. So it's like I'm trying to learn everything for the first time again, and it actually feels like that. So when I saw that Jesus charged with blasphemy, I kind of got a little choked up. I was like, is this where it's happening? Is this what's going on? Because before this, they were trying to arrest him and kill him, and he's like, it's not my time. When Jesus was on this earth, he was divinely protected by God until it was his time. Like, no one could kill him, no one could harm him, hurt him, nothing, until it was time. So when I saw that this morning, I said, is it happening today? Like, I don't want to read about this today. I'm very anxious for that day, but it was not today. Spoiler alert. So, verse 22 through 24 kind of set the stage for what's about to happen. So verse 22 says, and it was at Jerusalem, the feast of the dedication, which feast of dedication, thank you to our enduring word, because I didn't know, I was going to have to Google it, is another word for Hanukkah. So I actually wrote this down because I needed to know, because obviously I'm not Jewish, so I don't know about Jewish holidays or traditions or anything. I'm very ignorant to it. I'm trying to learn, willing to learn. So enduring word is helping because it kind of gives you a rundown. So what I wrote down, the Feast of Dedication, also known as Hanukkah, is celebrated the cleansing and rededication of the temple after 3 years of desecration by, don't come for me with these names, I cannot pronounce these names, okay? Antiochus Epiphanes, don't come for me. I don't know. He was the king of Syria in 164 or 165 BC. So that is what Hanukkah celebrates, and that's what the Feast of Dedication was. Don't come for me about the names. I don't know how to pronounce these names, okay? Just bear with me. And it was winter. So John, what I love about him, if y'all been following along on my Instagram stories, or if you followed along before you got here, y'all know that I always say this. John was like the king of details. So in all the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they all speak about the same things. They all have the same stories, but it's from their perspective. It's their account of what happened. But John was the only one who went in detail with everything. So he told y'all exactly where it was, Jerusalem, what was going on, Feast of Dedication, otherwise known as Hanukkah, and when it happened. It was winter. That's so cool to me. So verse 23, and Jesus walked in the temple in Solomon's porch. Then came the Jews round about him and said unto him, how long dost thou make us to doubt? And if thou be the Christ, tell us plainly. So when I read this, I kind of got like a little picture in my head, okay? So I'm picturing Jesus is just walking into the temple. He's calm, he's peaceful, he's just walking in. He's Jewish, he wants to, celebrate the Jewish stuff with the Jewish people. He's just there. He's there to be amongst, whatever for the Feast of Dedication. That's it. He's calm, cool, collected. He's chill. He's just strolling all in the temple. Verse 24, then came the Jews round about him and said unto him. So in my head, I see Jesus walking into the temple, cool, calm, collected, and these religious leaders bombard him with an ambush, and they want to basically turn up at him again. Like, this whole time we've been reading in John, they've been trying to set him up. They've been trying to catch him slipping, okay, so they can call him out and have him arrested for something. So they're like, oh, this is our chance. We're in the temple. He's going to say something. Let's go catch him up. Let's get him to slip. Be so for real right now. Anyways, so the end of that verse says, how long dost thou make us to doubt? If thou be the Christ, tell us plainly. So they were like, we're going to catch him in blasphemy because we just said, if you're the Christ, tell us. Which Jesus had a lot of ways of saying he was the Christ, he was the Messiah, but he never just flat out said that to any of the Jewish people. So like the Samaritan woman at the well, you know, she asked if he was the Messiah and he said, I am. But when it came to the Jews, he was very picky about his word choices, simply because when you use the words like Christ or Messiah, it comes with a lot of like political and like government kind of stuff and like actual like punishment, imprisonment and stuff. And that was stuff he just kind of wanted to keep from happening and avoid as long as possible, just to kind of keep the tensions from rising too much. So he would say things that hinted towards that, but he never directly just came out and said that to any Jewish people, because he wasn't trying to have all that happen before it was time, because then it wouldn't happen. Obviously he was divinely protected, but he didn't want to deal with all that. Okay, that's my paraphrasing. The Bible don't say that. That's my paraphrasing. So then it says, Jesus answers them. Now again, I'm picturing this. He doesn't get scared. He doesn't run away. He doesn't start panicking. You're like, oh my gosh, all these people are coming at me. What's going on? He just answers them. He says, I told you. Now also, if y'all are following me from Instagram, y'all know Jesus was a little sassy, a little snippy with his comments, okay? And he starts it by saying, I told you. And ye believed not. The works that I do in my Father's name, they bear witness of me. But ye believe not, because ye are not of my sheep. Going back to that, he's saying, y'all are not in my flock. As I said unto you, my sheep, hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. And I give unto them eternal life, and they shall never perish, neither shall any man pluck them out of my hand. My Father, which gave them me, is greater than all, and no man is able to pluck them out of my Father's hand. So again, he's going back to this because these are the same Pharisees that he just told this parable to about the sheep and the flock and the shepherds and everything. So he's like, okay, see if y'all are paying attention. Let me go back to this. He said, I already told you. When they said, if thou be the Christ, let me know. He said, I did. I told you. You didn't believe me. And the works that I do, all the miracles, all the signs, they bear witness of me and who I am. That alone should tell you. Me healing the blind, healing the lame, healing the leper, the woman at the well, I should tell you exactly who I am. I shouldn't have to use my words. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. He's saying, my sheep. Y'all, again, down in, where is it? Oh, it's still verse 26. Because ye are not my sheep. He's saying, you are not my sheep. Because, verse 27, my sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. And then verse 28, he gives them like a little snippet of the benefit of the blessing of being one of Jesus's sheep. And it's that we get eternal life, will never perish, and no one can ever take us out of his hands. Once he's got us, we are safe and we are secure in the hands of Jesus. No one can take us out. No one can harm us. We are locked in, okay? That should be really comforting for us. So then in verse 30, this is what does it for the Pharisees. This 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These 6 words are what do it for them. Jesus says, I and my Father are one. That's all they needed to hear. That's all they cared about. The fact they heard Jesus say that he is the same as God the Father. They are one means that Jesus is saying he is God. That's it. Game over. They caught him up. That's what they're thinking. Jesus is like, y'all literally, like, I've been saying this. He's like, y'all just wanted to hear it again? I'll tell you plainly. Y'all asked for it. Here it is. Verse 31, then the Jews took up stones again to stone him. Because when was it? John chapter 8, verse 59. Then took they up stones to cast at him. But Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple, going through the midst of them, and so passed by. So that was before, right before he healed the man that had been blind from birth. They wanted to stone him then too. So now they think, okay, we caught him. We got him. He just said he's God. Blasphemy, let's grab these stones. So instead of going through like a trial or having a hearing, however their methods were back in the day, instead of going through a process, they said, nah, we gonna finish this right here. We're gonna stone you. Again, Jesus didn't run, he didn't hide, he didn't panic, he didn't plead for his life, obviously, because we know Jesus ain't gonna do all that. But he didn't get all anxious and panicked about it. Instead, verse 32 says, he answered them, many good works have I showed you from my Father. For which of those works do you stone me? So he's saying, out of everything that I've shown you guys, all of my works, all of the miracles, all the signs, everything that I have done in my ministry so far that you guys hate, all of these things, which one is the reason you're stoning me? Like, cool, y'all want to do that, but like, just let me know. Why are you stoning me? Like, which one really tipped you over the edge and thought, be a good idea if we killed him now? Which one was it? Again, I'm paraphrasing y'all. Y'all will learn this about me. I add my own little snippets or whatever, but it's all, I have my Bible here. We are reading straight from the word, okay? Y'all never have to worry about that. Then verse 33, the Jews answered him saying, for a good work we stoned thee not. So they said, we don't care about what works you did, what miracles you did. That's not why we're stoning you. They said, but for blasphemy, and because that thou, being a man, makest thyself God. So they said, we don't care what works you did. That's not what we're stoning you. Could care less. That's not the reason. The reason is you are a man and you just said that you were God. That's blasphemous. That's why we're stoning you. So Jesus got his answer. So Jesus rebutted back a little bit, y'all. So verse 34 through 38, he speaks. I'm just going to read out, have it on the screen for y'all. Jesus answers them, is it not written in your law, I said ye are gods? If ye called them gods, unto whom the word of God came, and the scripture cannot be broken. Say ye of him who the Father had sanctified and sent to the world, thou blasphemest? Because I said, I am the Son of God? If I do not the works of my Father, believe me not. But if I do, though ye believe not me, believe the works, that ye may know and believe that the Father is in me and I in him. So again, y'all will learn that when Jesus has his little clapbacks, I'm going to talk about it and we're going to set the scene, because that's what I do in my head when I'm reading this. I set the scene out and I let it play out in my head, and I'm like, I wonder what these Pharisees did. I wonder what their facials, I wonder, I think about it in that way, and I try to almost animate it in my head like a movie, right? So he said, is it not written in your law? I said, ye are gods. So I wrote this down. During word, again, is beautiful. And when it said it's not written in your law, he is referring to Psalm 82. And this is when God gave the judges, so the human judges, the title of being gods, lowercase g. And that was only because their offices could determine the fate of someone. So it was like a judge of whether you live or die for like a crime. And so God called them gods, again, lowercase g. And so Jesus is saying, is it not written in your law, in the scripture? Because again, Pharisees are real uptight about keeping their scripture, not breaking the law. And 35, it says, if he called them gods, unto whom the word of God came, the scripture cannot be broken. So then he says, okay, so y'all can call them gods because God said so. But then in verse 36, what do you have to say about the person that God the Father sanctified and sent to earth? Think about it. If you're okay with these humans, these men being called gods because they can decide if someone lives or dies, then I come to earth and I say I'm the Son of God, even though he sanctified and sent me. Y'all are not okay with that. He's like, make it make sense. Because he said, if I don't do the works of my Father, you don't believe me. But if I do, you still don't believe me. So I don't know about y'all, but that didn't make sense to me. And I know it didn't make sense to Jesus. Well, I mean, it did, because he already knew their hearts and their minds. But like, he was like, can you just like clarify that? Can y'all just like make that make sense, please? Like, y'all can do it, but I'm an issue, pretty much. So verse 39, therefore they sought again to take him, but he escaped out of their hand. Now I love, sarcastically, I love that John doesn't say how Jesus escaped, because I would like to know, did he kind of just walk away and he was like, I'm gonna go now? Did he do like a little trot? Did he run a little bit? Did he skip? Like, I want to know how he escaped. So extra. But again, that goes back to what he said before, that he was divinely protected. It was not his time yet. So even though they tried to stone him twice now, they've tried to arrest him I don't know how many times now, it just isn't gonna work. Like, no, it's not gonna happen until God says it's supposed to happen. Duh. Like, I don't know why people don't learn. You keep trying to kill this man, you can't kill him. Like, just give up already. Just give up. So then verse 40 through 42 is pretty cool, and that's the end of this morning's Bible study. It says, and went away again beyond Jordan into the place where John at first baptized, and there he abode. And many resorted unto him and said, John did no miracle, but all things that John spake of this man were true, and many believed on him there. So again, enduring word kind of gives you the hookup and knowing where things are happening, give you an understanding of what's going on. So it said he went away again beyond Jordan into the place where John at first baptized, and there he abode. So this all happened at the temple in Jerusalem. Remember, we're having Hanukkah, the Feast of Dedication. This is in Jerusalem. So he left again beyond the Jordan to the place where John at first baptized. So Enduring Word tells us that is called, again, don't come for me about these names because I don't know how to pronounce them. It's called Perea. P-E-R-E-A. Perea. I don't know, but it says on here that was a domain of Herod Antipas. Y'all, I'm trying. I'll have it on the screen. Y'all could read it with me. Where the rulers in Jerusalem had no authority. So he was pretty much like temporarily protected, because where he went, those religious leaders had no say-so. They couldn't harm him. They couldn't try him, arrest him, nothing, because they had no authority in this area. So that was pretty cool to know, like fun fact. And many resorted under him. So a lot of people from this instance in the temple followed him, and they said John did no miracle. And I think that was a pretty cool thing, that was like a pretty cool statement that was made, because John came to make the way for Jesus to come here. He proclaimed that the Messiah was coming, right? He prepared the way, but he didn't do any miracles. But they're recognizing that even though he didn't perform any miracles, everything he said about Jesus was true. They're recognizing the fact that Jesus has done all of these things. John said it was going to happen, and it was all true. And then verse 42, and many believed on him there. So regardless of what is happening, regardless of what they're seeing with the Pharisees trying to call him out, trying to arrest him, trying to stone him, regardless of this whole altercation and this beef between them, these people were still able to see all of this and still see Jesus for who he is. So they were still able to believe on him and have him as their Messiah, and they understood and they believed. I think that's really cool. So next video for tomorrow's Bible study, we're going to pick up, we're starting chapter 11, and it's verses 1 through 16 for this next little like cutoff passage in my Bible, and it is titled Jesus's Friend Lazarus Dies. So this is one of those stories that I heard growing up, so I'm very familiar with it. However, I'm going to pray and try to turn off my brain tomorrow to have myself not remember this, and I'm going to be relearning it for the first time with y'all. But I really genuinely love sharing these Bible studies with you guys, whether it's here on YouTube, whether it's in my stories, whether it's in person, if people have questions, whatever. I genuinely love it, because not only am I helping y'all understand it better, I'm helping myself understand it better. I'm learning with y'all. I'm learning as we're going. And if there's ever a time that I've gotten DMs about these, if there's ever a time that I'm asked a question that I don't know, I will go to my pastor. I will look in the Bible. I will pray about it. I will figure it out, and we will get an answer together, because if you have a question, I may have the same one. You never know. So that is it for Bible study for today. Again, we are in John chapter 10. Tomorrow we are picking up in chapter 11. Going forward on this channel, these Bible studies will be a little bit shorter because we did do 2 in 1 today. But I just want to try to help y'all understand. I mean, again, helping myself understand. I'm learning with y'all. But kind of that the Bible is not just another book of stories. Like, this stuff really happened, and to help you understand like where it's happening, who is speaking, what's going on. I just feel like being able to break it down in that way, you're able to understand it and be like, huh, okay, Jesus, I get it now. I understand. I know exactly what you mean by this. And by that, we're able to kind of like fuel our spirits and fuel our lives. And I can't tell y'all the difference these have made in my day-to-day life, just going through this every single morning, whether I'm sharing it or even before I was sharing it. It just makes such a difference in my mood, my energy levels. Like, when I'm not in my word, I can feel the difference, and I'm like, I need to get right. Jesus, help me. But going forward, I will be continuing this series. We are still in the book of John. Again, I have KJV, but I'm using Enduring Word. Y'all can follow along. They do have everything in NIV. So no matter what translation or what edition of the Bible, if you will, that you have, you can follow along, and you will still get some understanding and some clarity and some life applications that you can have in your day-to-day life. But I'm also going forward looking at other types of videos as well, just because the Bible studies are amazing. And again, I love sharing them, but I also want to be able to give some kind of like life advice and a big sis biblical advice. Everything will still be coming straight from the word. Don't y'all worry your little hearts out. Nothing's coming straight from me. But I have just been through a lot in my 27 years on this earth. And I think if I continue to share my story and share what I've learned and how I've gotten through certain things, if it could help at least one person, I think I've done my job. So I know that my platforms have been given to me for a reason, and I have figured out that reason, and so that is why I am here. So I hope y'all have had a blessed day. I hope that this has really helped y'all understand exactly what's going on and that you got something from it. If you did, I would greatly appreciate it if you left a comment below, maybe at your favorite verse, maybe your aha moment, something that clicked, or maybe you just love some of the sass that Jesus has been given or how I've explained it. Either way, I just am so thankful for y'all's encouragement and support. And until our next video, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.